Today, I have a guest with me on the podcast, and this at first is going to seem like it's going a direction that doesn't make any sense. But I promise if you stay and listen till the end, you're going to learn something even I did not know. I mean, there's a lot that I don't know, but it was a shocking fact that Joseph McGuire, today's guest, shares with me. Now, Joseph is a facial reader and a body language expert, and he has done a lot of martial arts training. He's practiced shiatsu. He has used this connection between the mind and the body and the face to help people heal. And now he has gone a very different direction from where he started, and he's helping women to learn to read men's faces so that they know they are connecting with and getting into a relationship with someone who is seeking genuine connection. So I really hope that you like today's episode. It's something that's a little bit different. I had fun talking to him, and at the end, he shares some tips so that you know when you see someone what their intention is from the beginning. Enjoy. Hey, everybody, I have Joseph here, and I have to be honest with you. This is a really big thing for me to have Joseph on the podcast because he reads faces. I mean, he reads faces. He's taught people how to do it for interrogations in C suite, in sales. And I'm very aware that my entire life I've had a difficult time with making eye contact with people. And then later I found out that that has something to do with my neurodivergence. So once I came on camera for my business, maintaining eye contact with the camera, I end up with all kinds of little weird, quirky facial expressions that sometimes drive me crazy. So when I'm not making those facial expressions, I am fidgeting like crazy. So to have somebody on the podcast who can read me like a book is a little nerve wracking. But Joseph, I'm really happy to have you because you and I have chatted before. And
Mhm.
I think that you're bringing some real value to women in the world because we live in a world where people mask. I never realized I would get exhausted in crowds and in functions being around people because I was doing something called masking so that I would fit in. And I didn't understand that until I was 53 years old. I just thought it was tiring to be around people. And I do identity work with people at the subconscious level, and we all have our masks. I think I would like for you to start by just sharing a tad bit about how did you get into reading faces and what has that journey been and how did you get to where you are now, because that's really what we want to get into today is the service that you're bringing to women into the world today. So Joe, I'm just going to let you take off with it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Penny. It's such a pleasure to be here and such a pleasure to see you again. And just to absolutely clarify one particular thing, for me, it's all about connection. Like when I'm in a professional setting, yes, I have to assess, but it's still not about judgment. And it's not about what facial expressions people make because, like you say, we're all wearing masks and it's not a natural setting to be in front of a camera like this anyway, as we're spending so much of our time. So we're all going to make curious expressions, shall we say, so it's just part of being human. So I don't make any kind of a judgment of that. It's just about connection. And ideally it's about heart to heart connection as well. So that's really where I'm really coming from. I can do the interviews and the interrogation bit and all of that, but really where my heart is in a different place. So yeah, it started for me. I was reading people as a child. I just intuitively knew a lot of stuff about people as a child, men especially. And I know many women will probably disagree with me, but to me, men are largely a very straightforward read. Women remain a great mystery to me and to most men. But that's part of the beauty of life. So I was reading people as a child. At a relatively early age, I lost my confidence. So I grew up being what some of my friends referred to as the strong silent type. And it wasn't that I was intentionally silent. I just didn't have the confidence to really speak up a lot. So I was kind of in the background. But I realized many years later that was part of my apprenticeship because I was spending a lot of time observing and listening to people. And it was adding to my intuitive awareness. And then many years later, I lived in London and I trained as a shiatsu practitioner. But as part of my training there, I was introduced to facial diagnosis from the traditional Chinese medical system and reading faces and body language. And the Chinese perspective was always that the mind and the body are inseparably connected. So rather than it being like a Western diagnostic tool, you were seeing the heart as related to different aspects of our emotions, etc., and the liver and all of that. So I was more and more fascinated by reading the whole person rather than, any kind of clinical diagnostic. And I immersed myself in that totally. And then I worked as a therapist for 30 years, a therapist healer. I think we have to make that distinction. I wasn't purely clinical by any means. That's just not how I am. It's not how I can live. But I did some of my friends, a couple of Italian friends I was training with and became really close friends with when I was in London. They went to see this psychic lady, and I was kind of a little bit wary about the whole notion of what is psychic, and that's not where I was coming. That wasn't my background. But these were very practical people, and what they were telling me about their experiences just made so much sense. So I went to see this lady, and I think she was late 50s or even maybe 60-ish at the time, so considerably older than me, but she was very, very respectable lady, and she was actually a grandmother. And and it was a very affluent setting where she was living. So like the appointment was in her house. And like this it was very comfortable, very welcoming. And we sat on opposite sides of a coffee table, and she looked at me and she said, "You're a healer, and you've always been a healer, and you know that, don't you?" And the only honest answer I could give was yes. And it awakened something in me that this was really what I was doing, regardless of whatever training I was doing or qualifications I might have had. It was really about healing. Which again comes back to that idea of connection, because ultimately, no matter what our techniques are, it's about the presence we bring to our meetings with other people and the quality of the presence and the willingness to be present. And you mentioned earlier about wearing masks, and it's more and more for me about letting go of any masks and being willing to step up and being willing to just be fully present. And it doesn't mean it's always comfortable, because it's not. And it doesn't mean I'm going to like everybody or everybody's going to like me, because we're all human and we all have all our stuff. But it is more and more about being fully present, opening the heart, and just moving through life as lightly as I can. So that's really where I'm coming from. And that doesn't probably explain how I got to where I am and all of that, but it's the sort of abstract journey, as it were, the extract of the journey.
Yeah, I think people find it very interesting though. And you mentioned about it being about connection because you see a lot of people online that are doing this face reading and expression reading, and they're doing it from the perspective of calling out the liar. It's almost like hypnosis. There are a lot of misperceptions around hypnosis and mind control and is it of the devil and all of these things. And
Mhm.
my perspective is I'm not in the business of convincing anyone. I will help dispel myths and misperceptions, just like your experience with the psychic. But I believe that there's something out there for everyone, and the person they're meant to work with, whatever modality that is, they're going to come across that person's path if they're open to seeing it, first of all. And two, and I think you'll agree with me, we ourselves, we call ourselves healers, but we're not doing the healing. We create this space for people to step into that. What are your thoughts and experience around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. That the more fully present we are and the more the lighter we are in our being, and the more the heart is present and the heart is open, the more it is about facilitating the space for people to do that from within their own being. But it's not us doing it to them or for them.
Right. Now, how did you get into this place where you're interested in helping women have this understanding so that they can connect genuinely? And these are my words, I'm
Mhm.
paraphrasing from what you had said, to connect more genuinely in relationships. And I'm going to assume like you're helping women also to navigate what might be a mask, or
Oh yeah.
just how to communicate better.
Yes, absolutely. I've always had a thing about people being treated unfairly. I like it's that I just don't like injustice, period. And whether that's women, children, men, whoever. But I've had probably more female than male friends over the years, and unfortunately, too many of those female friends have recounted to me bad experiences they've had in relationships. And so they will send me or show me a photo or a video of the guy, and I will look at it and say, but did you not see this, this, and this? Because so many of those things jump out at me. So, like you referred a few minutes ago to people on, on the internet talking about face reading and pointing out liars, etc. When that is part of what I have to do in some cases to help women. I can do it. But it's not putting somebody down. It's to help bring somebody up so that they're not experiencing the negatives in relationship. That's really because that's really the purpose of it. And it's not for me to say that X is a terrible person. It's to say, look, you're better off not being in relationship with this person, or these are things you really need to pay attention to because you are worth more than to allow yourself to be treated badly.
Was there a specific experience that you had, or a conversation with someone that spurred you down this path of working with women?
I don't think it was one. I think it was just an accumulation. It wasn't that I wasn't consciously thinking of working particularly in that space. But it just, I guess, triggered something in me because I was meeting like these were women who were friends of mine. They weren't just random people. And it would be after the friendship had developed. And I'm not like this, that we weren't in relationship. We were just friends. And I've been blessed to be able to have genuine friendships with women over the years, which is something I know a lot of men don't actually have. But I think it was more an accumulation, and the fact that these were really nice people, and yet there seemed to be a pattern of having these negative relationships, and in some cases, terribly negative relationships, and being really disrespected and, so badly treated in so many ways. And part of it was realizing that in many ways, yes, they needed or they would benefit from having certain things pointed out to them about things to look out for. That would be red flags. But they also needed support in boosting their confidence so that they were not going to be in that position in the first place. And that goes partly back to my background many years ago in martial arts. Because many, many years ago, when I was a student actually in London, I trained, I practiced Aikido, and Aikido is often referred to as a spiritual martial art. And it was always about being centered and not aggression, no aggression. But if somebody attacked you, you would use their energy to disempower them. You wouldn't, it wasn't about blows and punches and kicks and all of that. It was using their energy to disempower. And but it was very much about being centered and present. And the more centered and present we were, or we are, the less likely those negative experiences are to come into our orbit anyway. And I realized that that was part of how I could help women.
Right. And when you say centered and present, where I come from with that is about having a trust within oneself, because you've managed to quiet that inner voice, that inner
Mhm.
doubt, that
Yeah.
narrative around yourself. So it sounds like you're incorporating some self work
Oh yeah.
along with reading others, because I don't know what you've seen in your experience. And I never really looked at this situation from this perspective until a coach pointed it out about 6 years ago. But for example, a woman who ends up in a domestic violence situation, oftentimes she had an experience when she was younger where that type of behavior was normalized, and it was, this is how things are in life. And I know that the mind can become patterned to what's familiar, and it
Yeah.
would rather operate in familiarity,
Hmm.
even if that's painful, than to step into uncertainty. So
Yeah.
do you notice that these women have a pattern sometimes of the same types of relationships?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, yes. And it's not a question of whether they are successful in their careers, etc. Because I've met some extremely successful women who were in very destructive relationships. But when you trace their history back, you'll find there are repeated patterns. And like you said, we can so easily become comfortable with discomfort because it's familiar. And we tend to gravitate towards what is familiar.
Yeah.
It-
So if you were to connect with a woman and maybe she's wanting to break a cycle that she's been in with relationships, where do you start with her?
yeah, I would start with like it's an individual conversation, and whether that's, whether that's online or in person. So I will do a profile of her, and I will talk about where she's been, but I will also talk about the untapped strength, because that has to be where the focus is. We have to bring her into an awareness and an acceptance of the strength she hasn't fully lived yet and hasn't fully brought through. And the more we can do that, the easier it is to, for want of a better term, break the cycle of familiarity, to bring her into a place where she realizes, oh, I don't have to be that anymore. I don't have to allow that. I don't have to even have to think about it anymore when we reach that certain point. And I'm sure you've seen that frequently in your own work,
Yeah.
that there's so much untapped power in all our minds anyway. But when we're in that cycle of being familiar and comfortable with negativity, it can be almost all consuming at times. Well, certainly for some people, it can be almost all consuming. But it becomes so not just familiar, but it becomes almost like the coat they're wearing. And it becomes almost like part of their identity. And there's almost like a fear of change as well as resistance to change, because what's out there could be worse. There's that feeling in there that they have. And it's just such a need to work from within to change it.
I was going to say identity. And, just to clarify for everyone, because I know what you're talking about and you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
But when we're saying being comfortable with that discomfort or the unpleasant situation we're in, we're talking about the nervous system in the brain, the
Yeah.
fight or flight mechanism. Your brain knows how to operate in a particular set of circumstances. So even though it's painful, it's hurtful, it can even be abusive, because your brain knows how to move within that and what actions are going to generate what responses in a very perverse way. I hate to use that word, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
accurate. In a very perverse way, the brain finds that safer than to stepping into a different way of being in a relationship where you have zero evidence of who you need to be, how you need to show up, and what to expect from the other person return.
Yeah. And if one is in that place, then one attracts the person who's going to mirror that or even accentuate it in us.
Once you get them to this place of what I call empowerment, when we're in self acceptance and we come to begin to know that we're whole, and we can trust in that, and we're not, giving over to someone else to take care of us, but we recognize we can take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's when seeking a partner becomes magical. It's not because you need them in your life, it's because you want that compliment. And that self acceptance is what I call empowerment. How do you move women into that? Are you doing it through movement? Because you mentioned Aikido. Are you doing it through coaching or energetic practices?
Yeah, effectively, well, I'll start with the facial profiling. That's the starting point. Then I will obviously be investigating their life in terms of what is it they do that nurtures them? What are the activities that nurture them? Whether that's dance, martial arts, music, art, whatever it might be, that they that I will look to get them to really connect with the energy of that. What is the feeling of pleasure? What's the feeling of joy when they're engaged in that? And to get them to bring that into their body, because there's a need to embody those feelings, because that's part of strengthening from within. And that's one of the areas I do focus on, because one of the things I have learned over many, many years is that the body is a teacher. The body is such a powerful teacher, but it's also continually transmitting and receiving so much energy. And for most of us, I think, certainly in the Western world, we've been conditioned to not really be in our bodies for so many reasons. But the more we can be at ease within our bodies, again, the more freely we move, the stronger our energy is, the stronger the transmission of our energy. So again, we manage to not attract those other, shall we say, more harmful energies from other people. That's a big part of it, emphasizing what it is they're doing that brings them real joy and brings them into that place of feeling alive. And then I will also typically, if they're in relationship or if they've been in relationship recently, I will ask them for photos or video of whoever the guy or guys may happen to be. And I will take them through some aspects of those in terms of this is some when you see this on somebody's face or when you see that expression or whatever, these are things to look out for and these are things to avoid. These are the green flags and these are the red flags. And then I will talk about behavioral stuff so that if they're not in a relationship now or they're in early stages of relationship or just beginning to date, I will give them some questions and some strategies to bring into the conversations during dating so that they know how to test without the guy being necessarily alert to it. They will know how to test for what's the real character. So that's also part of empowering them. They know they're not just going in and hope that this is the nice guy and this is Mr. Right and all of that. They're going in with tools that help to reveal, and so that also adds to their confidence going in there. And it reminds me, Matthew McConaughey gave an interview many years ago, and he talked about the early stages of his career when he wasn't particularly successful, and he was going for audition after audition after audition and not getting the role. And he said he went back to his apartment and he was talking to whoever he was sharing the apartment with and telling him on his tale of woe. And his friend said, "Yeah, desperation leaves a smell. If we're desperate and we're really looking for love and we're hoping this is the right guy, this is the guy for life, that transmits itself without us saying anything. That transmits itself in our facial expression, our body language. And like one of the other things that I've been also influenced by the work of the Heart Math Institute, and they've demonstrated that the heart transmits a vibration for a distance of like some 10 feet from the body. So if we're sitting across the table from somebody having a nice meal during a date, our hearts are already communicating. And if we're anxious or we're desperate, um, their body is picking it up. And if they're insecure or if say we say their intentions are not the best, they're picking up on that. And, so there's a whole other cycle.
And I think they've even done some research that you can literally smell fear. They had people wearing sweatsuits and they were running on a treadmill or doing something. And when you would have people smell the sweat, they were attracted to the confident, I'm just
Hmm.
out for a run. It smelt attractive, but someone who was in fear or in anxiety and had been running, it was actually repelling. So it goes to say a lot about our nervous system, but particularly what you said about the heart. I would think that that plays a key role in our intuition. And for me, I consider intuition different from a gut feeling
Hmm.
because feelings come from our brain and our Rolodex of experiences and interpretations, but our intuition is just a knowing and
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And there have been times where I have met people and it's been, and this was years ago, it was like, yep, no. And I'm like, oh, you need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so my desire to be a nice person and not be judgy. And then
Hmm.
later it was like, oh, why didn't I just listen?
Yeah.
So would you consider that heart field, that electrical field, would you consider that part of the intuition?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's being alert to it. And again, that's part of our conditioning to not be alert, unfortunately. Like a couple of things come to mind there. Like we did talk about gut feeling, but that also, for our gut feeling to be alive and functioning well, we do need to be nurturing our gut, literally, literally. So what we're putting in and how we're putting it in also determines the quality of our gut feeling. But then there is that other intuition, which is for me a whole being experience. And it does require practice. It's there all the time, but we so often second guess ourselves. And it's like you said, you want to be nice, you want to be polite, you want to be mannerly, and all of those things. But sometimes it's not appropriate. And again, so many of us were brought up to be very mannerly, and from childhood. A child gets a feeling about somebody, I don't want to be around them, but the parents say, but you have to be nice. And if that's something I would always say to parents, if your child is telling you they don't want to be around somebody, you pay attention.
Yeah, but I remember growing up, oh, go ahead and give Uncle Bob a kiss. Uncle Bob hasn't
Hmm.
seen you in however many years, or sit in Aunt Liza's lap. Sit in her
Oh
lap.
yeah.
She just wants a hug. And when when you don't know somebody and you don't have that relationship and it feels unsafe, now you're being taught that you have to forego your sense of feeling safe and knowing
Hmm.
that you're in a safe place. Is that coming in a lot?
I think more parents are becoming aware because there's been so many stories of abuse. So I think more parents are becoming aware, but so many parents are also so busy nowadays, whether it's economic pressures or drive for a better career, all of that, that it does raise questions for me as to how children are being raised. I'd have a lot of concerns. This is a very roundabout answer to your question, but I have a lot of concerns because I'm hearing so many anecdotal stories of children, 8, 9, 10 years old, talking to talking to AI bots because they're so lonely. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, we're in a really interesting place. I know that years ago when I was still in anesthesia, it was before I even left Connecticut. So we're talking 2012, 2013. It was the beginning of parents putting this in front of the kids
Yeah.
to keep them preoccupied. So a child 2, 3, 4 years old would be coming in to have their tonsils out or tubes in their ears, and they didn't even know how to communicate a basic hello.
Oh yeah.
They wouldn't look up from the device. And I mean, parenting is hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. They don't come with a rule book. You're figuring it out as you go and you're praying you don't make a mistake, and you probably make more mistakes than you get it right. And they still turn out okay. But I think I think we've got into such a convenience society and such a convenience life that social media and now AI is getting people so self-absorbed, not introspective, but self-absorbed, that they're more concerned for their own needs even than their children. They think, well, it's okay for me, it's okay for them, and it's so absolutely not. Boy, we took a detour there, but I
Yeah.
think it was worth saying. So, if you could give one or two tips to a woman who's listening to this podcast that would get them started understanding what, where would you tell them to start?
Okay, if you're meeting somebody, pay attention to their eyes. When you make eye contact, what's the feeling you get from the eyes? And you can practice with photos in magazines or wherever. When you make eye contact, pay attention. What's the feeling you get from the eyes? And there's three basic possibilities. The eyes are either warm, they're neutral, or they're cold. If there's genuine warmth from the eyes, and particularly when you see them smile, do the eyes sparkle?
Is it a real smile?
A real smile, what we call the Duchenne smile, or is it a social smile where it's only the mouth? If it's only the mouth they're smiling with, proceed with caution. But if the eyes give you a feeling of coldness, you don't want to be there. And you don't need an explanation as to why. You don't need to second guess yourself and think, oh, I've made this effort and I should be here and all that. If the eyes give you a feeling of coldness, and you will feel it literally as an uncomfortable feeling or actual cold, if you get that, make your excuses and leave as soon as possible. And if for whatever reason you have to stay for any length of time, do not reveal anything significant about yourself. If you have to speak with them, ask them questions so that they're not learning anything about you. Keep them busy, and then leave as soon as you can. That's the most important thing. We talk about the eyes being the windows to the soul. Now, whether we think in those terms or not, the eyes will tell you so much about the person and the quality of the person, the character of the person. And it's the single most important thing. And it's the thing I always look for first. And if you're not sure what cold eyes are like, look I don't, it's not that I recommend it, but you can look at photos of serial killers and you will be in no doubt as to what coldness means. And unfortunately, there are people walking around in everyday life who have that coldness.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I tend to notice in people when they've had a lot of pain in their life, you can, it's, I don't want to say it's a hollowness, but it's like there's something genuine there, but the sparkle's not there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and that's another thing. That's one of the, like, again, going back to some of those conversations I would have had with women, where they'd meet somebody and they think he's nice and, oh, he's got a lot of pain, so I have to be there, I have to nurture him. And that's fine to a point. But if you're effectively taking on the carer role in the relationship and you're not getting anything back, then that's not a good way to be.
Yeah, some people believe that, they find their role in life helping others heal, and sometimes unfortunately they do that in their relationships.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't, and it doesn't create healing for them. They bury themselves. That becomes the mask they wear.
So I would like to take a moment, if we could, and elaborate on what you were talking about of not, if they have those cold eyes and you can't leave that situation to not reveal information about you. Because I've been on the opposite end of someone who actually, when we met, introduced myself. They're like, oh, you do hypnosis? And I'm like, yes. And they said, well, why are you in LA? And I said, one of my clients invited me out here to go
Mhm.
to a Bobby Kennedy
Yeah.
fundraiser at their home. And they started to ask a few questions. And when I would answer, they immediately had a story that mirrored my
Hmm.
experience. And the second time I shared something and they mirrored it, I'm like, okay, their first story doesn't match the second story. Those two things are not
Hmm.
compatible. So I said, let me see what happens next. So I threw out a third detail,
Yeah.
and they were doing in what we call in hypnosis matching and mirroring,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because they want to suck in your ego and make you feel important.
Yeah.
Is that what you're helping women to avoid when you're saying not to give details?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There, that's a classic case. Thankfully, you had the awareness, but so many women don't.
I'm
They will feel flattered. It's such a powerful lesson for you that not only for you, and it's a reminder that your antennae were on, but it's also now you've just recounted it here. So it's something for your audience to be aware of, that if this kind of pattern, if they experience this, it's likely to be something to avoid.
Yeah. And I think that anytime it's a new person, we should go into it with that same level of, yes, we want to connect, not to be afraid, but to have some degree of, I guess, self preservation. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't want to scare people.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah,
just need awareness.
yeah, absolutely. And I would say if you're meeting somebody for a first date, you don't meet them somewhere on your own. That's another thing. Meet in a public place.
I think
And if they're coming up with reasons why you shouldn't meet in a public place, that's a red flag. And if they're like if you're dating somebody for a while, ideally you want at least one of the early dates and you think this could go somewhere and things look positive, you want them to meet your friends and get your friends' perspective on it, but you also want to meet their friends. And if they're finding reasons why their friends are never available, that's a massive red flag.
really,
Oh yeah, that's a classic sign of a narcissist.
I,
If their friends are always out of town or they're away or they're unavailable, yeah, big red flag.
so look at their eyes. If their eyes are cold, make your excuses and go. If you
Yeah,
can't make your excuses and go and you have to engage in some conversation, then don't reveal too much about yourself and let them meet your friends. You meet their friends. And if their friends are never available, there's a problem there.
yeah. And if your friends, and these are friends, like when I say friends, these are friends who know you well. If they get a bad vibe from the person, pay attention. Ask them afterwards, like get their appraisal afterwards. They like him or they don't like. But if they don't like him, why don't they like? What is it about the person that they don't like? But if they don't like it, and particularly if it's a few of your friends, pay attention.
Amazing. So, if someone wanted to reach out to you to work with you, how would they go about doing that? Do you have a resource that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, the best place to contact me, where I'm most active is on LinkedIn. I know not everybody is on LinkedIn, but it's where I'm most active. I am on Facebook, but it's more a personal base. But the professional place to get me is LinkedIn. And that's Joseph McGuire dash face facts.
Yeah. All right. We will have the link in the show notes. Is there anything that I didn't think to ask that you would like to share to wrap it up?
Um, yeah, there's an old Chinese proverb which goes something along the lines of the people who have power over me, I give it to them. And we don't always like to think if something goes wrong in a relationship, it's easy to blame the other person. And in some cases, maybe it may be highly appropriate. But if we're giving our power to the other person, we're opening a door. And again, it comes back to us being grounded and centered within ourselves and having the confidence within ourselves. And I know that's for many people, that's easier said than done. And certainly I grew up with very little confidence. I had to grow into mine. And there are moments when I still doubt. So it's not that it's always that you reach a point where you're absolutely rock solid, but there will always be challenges in life. But the more we can pay attention to being truly confident and at peace within ourselves, I don't mean confident and, aggressive because that's not healthy, but confident and at peace within ourselves and at ease within ourselves and having that joy of whatever the activities are that we love to do, the more we're inclined to attract the right people and the right opportunities. I know I've touched on that earlier, but so much of it comes back to that.
I don't think it can be, touched upon enough, really, because I think through society over the last several decades, we've outsourced our happiness, we've outsourced what we need to know that we're a productive member of society and everything else, and we just kind of become numb to who we are. So thank you, Joseph, so much for being here today. Everyone, I'll have the link to his LinkedIn in the show notes. He also has a book that you can order on the website called Face Facts that has little things that you can look at there. Also, if you're wanting to take a little bit of a deeper dive of how people get into patterns in their life and how the mind really plays a role and experience your own identity shift, we have Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked coming up. It's a 2-day workshop introducing you into the world of hypnosis, how the mind forms these patterns and leans into the safety. And I'm going to teach you how to hypnotize someone. So be sure to go connect with Joseph on LinkedIn, get the book, connect with him if you're looking to break cycles in your relationships, and join me for Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked. Everyone have a great week, and I'll catch you next time.